Good morning. It's 10:30 Eastern Standard Time, Saturday, April 26th. This is Aaron Boster gearing up for another Ask Me Anything live stream. Super excited to go live with you today. I like to turn my camera and get everything kind of set up about a half an hour before we actually start answering questions. This gives everyone in this global growing online community a chance to jump online, get comfy cozy, and say hello, howdy, hi. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Sorch is in the house. Liam's in the house. People are starting to roll in. Hello, Martin, how are you? Candy Duncan is in the house. Hello, Candy. Hey, Paige, good to see you. Welcome, Billy. Welcome, Manty. Welcome, Carol. Hello, everyone. Bluthton, one of our amazing moderators, has already jumped online. Good morning, everyone. Aaron Boster here. Joe Siders, another amazing moderator, is in the house. Joe, I'm delighted to have you here. I hope you and yours are doing well. Carla's in the house. Welcome, everyone. Good morning, Jennifer. NADZ is in the house. Sandy Barber is here. Donna Welsh, welcome. Thank you, everyone, for jumping online. Gosh, I pronounce it wrong every single time. Okay, I'm going to try again. Sorka. Sorka, am I saying it correctly? I'm going to practice saying Sorka 100 million times. All right, Sorka, tell me if that's correct. Yes, okay. All right, Sorka. Now, there's a high likelihood that I may mess it up again, but gosh, I'm going to try. And as always, thank you for being here. Dominic, welcome. Istanbul representing. We're going to actually turn the cameras on, and I'm going to start to answer your questions live at the top of the hour at 11 a.m. sharp, Eastern Standard Time. We've got 29 short minutes until we kick it off. Let's see if we can get the volume properly set. Let's get a volume check, guys. Testing, 1, 2, 3, 4. Testing, 1, 2, 3, 4. Mary had a little lamb, over. Sorka, it's more my inability to pronounce names than the fact that you have an awesome one. Richmond, Indiana's in the house. What's going on, Jennifer? Candy Duncan says the volume is good. Can I get some more feedback? We've got another amazing moderator online. Angela's in the house. What's going on? Sorka can hear me fine. Volume is okay, according to Martin. Okay, Bluthton and Joe Siders are all telling me the volume is good. Susan wishes it was a little bit higher. Let me see what I can do here. Okay, all right. Let me see if I can boost it a little bit. Test, 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 test. All right. Super McDuper. I love it. Welcome, everybody. I'm super excited to be here today. This will represent our April live stream. I've been going live about once a month ever since I launched the Boster Center for Multiple Sclerosis about 5 years ago. I look forward to these events big time. I've been looking forward to this all week, to be honest. Rose is in the house representing Holland. Great to see you. Okay, I'm getting some messages that the sound is better. I tried to tweak it the best that I could. Australia representing. Iran is in the house. What's going on, my friend? This is fantastic. Mama Bear is in the house. Sorka is in the house. Sorka, you know what I've done today is I've prepared several questions that were asked me in previous live streams. So I've got maybe, 10 or 15 questions preloaded. I'm going to be answering those intermittently with questions that I take live. You have a question about bowels, and that's a favorite topic of mine. I will be happy to delight to talk about that. Angela, thank you for asking. It's always nice to step away, take a deep breath, and get back to work. Norway is in the house. Canada is in the house. Scotty White is representing the great Republic of Texas. Fantastic. Iowa representing. Susan's got questions. Hold your questions for when we go live at the top of the hour. I'll be taking as many questions as I can. South London is in the house. That's fantastic. Great Britain representing. Hello, AC. Hello, Catch a Girl representing Pennsylvania. I'm going to be visiting Pennsylvania next weekend. I'm going to be taking a little trip to Nemacolin. Athens, Greece is in the house. What's going on, Gus? Gus is an OG. We've got India representing. This is fantastic. Delaware representing. This is fantastic. Thank you, guys. I'm so excited to see you all. There's 82 of you that have jumped online. As you jump online, do me a favor and share where you're jumping on from. So, if you don't mind, just tell us where you're jumping on from. I love to go back through the chat after the chat's over and read where everyone from this growing global online village has amassed. Also, when we get started, please keep in mind that I can't diagnose or treat you on the interwebs. That please try to make your questions generalizable so that I can answer them and everyone can benefit from the answers. Obviously, I'm not giving out medical advice on the interwebs right now. This is all about education, empowerment, and energizing people and families impacted by MS. Sorka says that it's sunny in Ireland. That's pretty fantastic. Our weather here in central Ohio has actually been superb recently. It's a pleasure of mine to sit out by a fire in the evenings, and I've been able to do that almost this entire last week, which was phenomenal. Tel Aviv is in the house. We've got Israel representing. The UK is in the house. Kentucky's in the house. What's going on, Chris? Great to see you. Welcome, everyone. Aaron Boster here. Gearing up for this April Ask Me Anything live stream. I'll be taking your questions live, and I've prepared several questions that were asked in previous live streams that I didn't get to, so we'll be tackling those as well. I am excited to see everyone jump online. There's 86 of you that are already here. Guys, I got a project. I've recently been helping a therapist friend of mine. She's actually a phenomenal talk therapist, a PhD psychologist, who I have been referring patients to for, over a decade now. She has seen so many people impacted by MS that she oftentimes identifies MS as a subspecialty. She has started a YouTube channel, which I think is just absolutely awesome. She's just getting off the ground. I'm going to be talking about her channel a little bit later today during the live stream. But if y'all would do me a favor, go on your YouTube and check out Behaving Forward with Dr. M. I want you to subscribe to her channel for me. She is just getting kicked off. She's just learning how to upload to YouTube. This woman is a powerhouse, super, super smart. So do me a favor and see if you can hook that up. See, Billy's asking if I can post her channel link. I don't know if I can do that. Let me try it, Billy. Let's see here. I think I pulled it off. Let's get that channel link set up. All right, here's the channel link. That was a good suggestion. So you can find the channel link in the chat. So it's youtube.com/@behaveforward. So click that channel link if you would, and do me a favor and subscribe to her channel. She is just getting started on YouTube. She's been a key member of my team trying to help families impacted by MS live their best life. She's an amazing PhD psychologist, and I really want to throw her some love. If you guys would like to up your game and learn from a master, she's one that I definitely want you to pay attention to. I'm getting a lot of great advice from the chat. I'm not sure how to pin that, to be honest with you. All right, guys, we are going to go live here at the top of the hour. We've got about 20 minutes until we go live. In the interim, get comfy and cozy. take a bio break if you're inclined. Make sure to grab some water. I've got water and coffee at the ready. You know how we do it. We do the MS Water Challenge. When I drink, you drink. When you jump online, of course, share where you're jumping on from. And please keep in mind that we want to make sure that your questions are generalizable so that everyone can benefit from the answers. We've got Lucasville, Ohio in the house. I'm doing great. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate you asking. I can't really complain. There's a lot of good things going on right now. The weather has turned. It's getting really nice outside. I am really proud of my team at the Boster Center for MS and our ability to deliver care for families impacted by this nasty disease. My teenager is getting ready to graduate from high school, which is pretty phenomenal. A lot of good things going on right now. Thank you so much for asking. Joe Sider's reminding us that you can help by clicking that like button. When you hit that like button, when you comment on a video, when you watch a video, when you share a video, it teaches the YouTube algorithm that you really dig this content. And that helps the channel so much because it pushes it out so more families impacted by MS can find this channel and benefit from the content. So I really appreciate when you guys do that. Judith for Denmark is in the house. Angela is reminding us that the MS Walk is right around the corner, May 17th. The Boster Center for MS will have a presence there. I'm very excited to represent and to walk to help raise money for the National MS Society to help find a cure for multiple sclerosis. Sorka is a 19-year-old daughter. Wow, that's really fantastic. I feel ya. I certainly do. Dennis B is in the house. Hey, thank you guys for subscribing to my friend's channel. As I mentioned earlier, a few moments ago, this gal is a powerhouse of psychology. She's a PhD psychologist. I've been referring her MS patients for over a decade, and she is really, really amazing. I'm so proud of her that she started a YouTube channel, so help her out by subscribing to her channel. Joe Sider's amazing moderators reminding us that if you would like updates on a monthly basis about what is hot and new at the Boster Center for MS, including what research trials you may qualify for, and when I go live. You can click that link, bosterms.com, get Boster News. That's the Boster Corner. It's a free newsletter. You can sign up if you like. So that therapist that I was talking about has many different specialties, but she identifies MS as a subspecialty since she's been taking care of my patients for so long, and she is absolutely phenomenal. Subscribe to her channel. You'll learn a lot. Elizabeth Thomas is in the house. That's really, really exciting. Thank you for being here, madam. A lot of wonderful, friendly faces I see here. KD is in the house. Julie is representing upstate New York. Flying Cloud. That's a great question. Ask it once we go live at the top of the hour in 20 short minutes. NADZ. I've diagnosed someone as young as 6 years old. Fortunately, that's not very common, but it does happen. We can talk about age of onset and the differences between pediatric and adult MS once we get rocking and rolling. Claire wants to know if melatonin is safe. The quick answer is yes. Of course, you always have to talk to your doctor about what's right for you. Nikki's in the house representing UK, the Netherlands representing. Hey, Walter, thanks for being here, my friend. Good morning, everyone. Aaron Boster here, representing the Boster Center for Multiple Sclerosis, where we care for families impacted by MS from around the globe. There's 101 of you that have jumped online. That is absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for being here, everyone. I've been taking time once a month since we went live with the Boster Center 5 years ago to jump online like this, to connect with you, to answer your questions live, get a chance to hang out. And I love these live streams. They are so much fun for me. Joe Siders is reminding you, if you're just jumping online, I've got a request. I want you to click that link that he put in the chat. That's to a friend of mine's YouTube channel, Behave Forward. She's a PhD psychologist par excellence. Phenomenal. She's going to be doing some education on YouTube. I'm very, very proud of her. I want you to support her. We've got Ireland representing. We've got Derbyshire, UK in the house. We've got Naples representing. What's going on, Jason Bell? Good to see you, my friend. Susan's in the house. This is really great, guys. I am so excited. We're going to go live in just 16, 17 short minutes. I'm going to step away for a quick bio break. Get yourself comfy cozy. I'm going to leave the chat in the capable hands of our moderators. I want to thank each and every moderator for helping keep the chat clean and keep things moving. As you jump online, of course, share where you're jumping on from. I will be right back at you. Hello, howdy, hi. Back from a bio break. Tom is representing Poland. Thank you for being here, friend. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hello, Drew. Great to see you. Carolyn is in the house. We've got Massachusetts representing. Scotland is in the house. Joe Sider's throwing out some solid advice. As always, thank you for being here, friend. Nicole is in the house. Elizabeth is in the house. What's up, Candy? Great to see you. So glad that everyone can be here today. This is Aaron Boster, representing the Boster Center for Multiple Sclerosis. Excited to go live at the top of the hour, where I'll be answering your questions. I've got a request. If you haven't yet, click the link in the chat. This is a brand new YouTube channel. A good friend of mine, Dr. M, who's created a YouTube channel bringing the behave forward construct forward. She is a phenomenal psychologist here in Columbus, Ohio. I've been referring her patients for well over a decade. She's an expert as it relates to MS psychology. She's helped hundreds and hundreds of families that I've personally taken care of. I am so excited and proud of her that she's starting a YouTube channel, and I want to help support and promote her. So click that link, subscribe to her channel. Of course, it's completely free to do that. You're going to learn a lot. I think you'll really, really like what she has to say. Jennifer Smith is in the house. What's going on? Gloucestershire representing. What's going on, Tom? Great to see you. Thank you very much for being here. Hey, Carolyn. You are very, very welcome, my friend. It's springtime here in central Ohio. What's your weather like where you're calling in from? throw your answer in the chat. It is gorgeous here. I've been able to spend my evenings after work sitting out by my fire in my backyard watching the sunset. There's almost nothing that I like better than that. Paige, congratulations. I am really proud of you. That's a big deal. Jason Bell asks if live streams are always the last Saturday of the month. That is always our goal. I can't tell you that I always hit it, but that is absolutely what we try to do. If you'd like to know exactly when we go live, you can subscribe, sign up for free to the Boster Corner, which is a free newsletter. Earlier in the chat, one of our moderators threw up the link. You can click that link. It's free to sign up. You can cancel anytime, but it'll tell you exactly when I go live. Weatherport sunshine, Matthew says. Digging that. North Carolina's in the house. Minnesota's in the house. Hot in Florida, I believe that. Beautiful spring, Carolyn says. Cyprus. Fantastic. I actually had a college roommate from Cyprus. Guy named Arion Potassius. Good Greek name. Seattle's in the house. Melissa, thank you for being here. Arkansas is in the house. What's going on? UK representing. Ireland representing. North Yorkshire representing. We got Oklahoma here. What's the weather like in Oklahoma? Tornadoes and hail. Oh my goodness gracious. Tom, it's great to see you. ALB Trading, Orlando, Florida in the house. It is hot. Donna Welsh is in the house. Long Island representing. We got Phoenix up in here. That's fantastic. Illinois representing. We've got 10 minutes until we go live, guys. There's already 122 of you that have shown interest. I am so excited and honored. Robert Wilhelm is in the house. Robert, I hope you and yours are doing well, representing Dublin, Ohio. What's going on? Thank you so much for being here. Jane is in the house. Sorka, Ireland. Greatest place in the world when the sun shines. I have to agree with you. I sometimes look back through pictures when I visited Ireland. I'm just blown away by how green it is. Vivian's in the house. Vivian, where are you calling in from? Tell us, tell us. Welcome, everyone. Aaron Boster here, representing the Boster Center for Multiple Sclerosis, where we care for families impacted by MS from around the globe. I am really excited to jump online. We're going to go live at the top of the hour, answering your questions live. Alex, representing Port Clinton, Ohio. Shannon, always happy to provide a break from cleaning. San Diego's in the house. That's awesome, Vivian. Thank you for being here. People do throw in questions in the chat, and I try to answer them live. It's kind of a fun experience. Susan, I've been to Germany several times. I've been to Munich a handful of times. I've been to Dusseldorf several times. I've been to Berlin a few times, twice. Questions are coming in. Hold those questions for at the top of the hour when we go live. California representing. What time is it in California, Ernie? Brooklyn. New York representing. Makes me think of the Beastie Boys. I've never been to Asia. I really want to go to Cambodia, Laos. I really want to go to Thailand. I want to go to Vietnam. I would love to go to Japan. I'd love to see parts of China. I don't know the East at all. I've done a decent amount of traveling in South America and in Europe, a little bit in the Middle East. Never been to Australia. I'd love to go to Australia. Istanbul representing. What's going on? No sleep till da da da. Yeah, there you go. There's some Beastie Boys in the house. That makes me smile. Makes me think of my childhood. Peoria, Arizona is in the house. Sorka bragging about green in Ireland. Amen, my sister from another mister. We go live in 7 minutes. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Get comfy, cozy. Make sure you've got your water ready for the MS Water Challenge. It's early in California. Thank you guys for being here. It's almost 11 o'clock here in Eastern Standard Time. Northeast England representing. Thank you so much for being here. Anil, hold your question for when we go live. We have a few short minutes. Lisa, that's a great question. We'll tackle that in a little bit. Kentucky is in the house. Welcome. We have a lot of patients that come up to see us from Kentucky. That's why I keep a Kentucky license. Phoenix, Arizona is in the house. Istanbul is in the house. Istanbul is an amazing city. Wowzers. I've never been to Mecca. I would love to visit Mecca. That would be phenomenal. What an honor. West Virginia is in the house representing. 4 p.m. in Ireland. There we go. I love Tennessee. Are you joking? Tennessee's fantastic. I would retire in Tennessee. Those mountains are to die for. Las Vegas, Nevada. What's going on, Dennis? Thank you for being here. Denise, sorry about that. Amy in Indiana. This is phenomenal. We have 6 minutes until we go live. I am so pumped to be with you today to answer these questions live. We're going to do an Ask Me Anything MS. I've prepared some questions that were asked in previous live streams that I didn't get a chance to answer. So I'll throw those on the screen and we'll chat them up. I'll also be taking your questions live. Middle of Georgia representing. Drew, if you go to my website, which is bosterms.com, you can take a look at, I've got about, I want to say 15, 16 different state licensures to allow me to extend my reach and to do telemedicine with people from across state lines. Wales is in the house. This is great, guys. We have 5 minutes. Now, you know, when we get to the 3-minute mark, it's time to flame up the chat. And that's how we tell the YouTube algorithm that we dig this content. So find that flame emoji button. Get ready to spam the heck out of it. Jenny B representing OHIO. Hey, it's good to see you. Thank you so much for being here, madam. I hope you and yours are doing well. Amy's asking where we're from. So, Amy, my name's Aaron Boster, and I'm an MS neurologist in Columbus, Ohio, in the smack dab middle of Ohio here in Midwestern United States. Check out the Boster Center. You can go to bosterms.com. In fact, I'll put that in the chat, bosterms.com. That's our website where you can learn all about us. Julia has got the flames ready. We're going to be flaming up the chat in a few short minutes. Peter representing Dallas. What's going on? Wisconsin representing. North Carolina representing. That's another amazing state. North Carolina. Romania. That's phenomenal. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. Mexico representing. Four short minutes until we go live. Sterling's got the right idea. Carolyn's got the right idea. Detroit is in the house. I did my fellowship in Detroit. Spent 2 years there training with 2 MS gurus. I have very fond memories of training in Detroit. Detroit's an amazing city if you know where to go. What's going on, Dave? Billy's got the right idea. Got flames galore. Jason, that's a solid question. We should tackle that in a few short minutes when we go live. Maria's got her flames ready. Denise has got her flames ready. Athens, Greece representing. Get ready to flame up the chat, guys. We have 3 short minutes. Show the YouTube algorithm that you are as pumped as I am to be here today for this Boster Center Ask Me Anything live stream, where I'll be tackling your MS questions on the fly. Flame up the entire chat. Show the YouTube algorithm that you dig this content. It helps push out this channel so that more families impacted by MS can benefit. Sarah's got the right idea. We've got flames galore. Flame it up, guys. Flame it up. Billy's got the right idea. Joe Sider's leading the way. Kristen flaming it up. Paige flaming it up. We've got 2 minutes until we go live. 2 minutes of constant flames. That's how we do it up in here. Drew's got the right idea. Come on now. Jenny B's got the right idea. Bluthton's got the right idea. There you go. That's exactly what we want to see. We want to flame the hey out of the chat. Flame up that chat, guys. We've got it going on. See if we can keep those crazy flames going for in solid 2 minutes. That's going to send a very clear message to the YouTube algorithm that we are pumped to be here today. Robert Wilhelm's got the right idea. Laura's got the right idea. Go ahead and flame up the chat, yo. Less than 1 minute until we go live. Aaron Boster here, representing the Boster Center for Multiple Sclerosis. Stoked to take your questions live during this Multiple Sclerosis Ask Me Anything. Mona's got the right idea. Come on now, flame up the chat. We have less than 60 seconds until we go live. Beverly's got the right idea. Come on now, go ahead and flame up that chat. Spam that flame button. You know how we do it. Bosnia representing. Flying Cloud has got the right idea. Flames galore, staring at the clock as we count down less than a minute until we go live. Don't stop now, guys. Just a few short seconds until we go live. Let's get as many flames in the chat as we can, yo. You know how we do it. Candace Cross has got the right. Hi! Hello, howdy, hi, everyone. Aaron Boster here. Thank you for flaming up the chat. That's how we show the YouTube algorithm that we are pumped to be here. I am very, very excited to kick off this April Ask Me Anything live stream, where we're going to be answering your MS questions live. I have been doing these live streams about once a month. I try to hit the last Saturday of every month since I opened the Boster Center for Multiple Sclerosis going back 5 years now. I can't believe it's been 5 years. That's phenomenal. Thank you, each and every one of you, for being here today. There's 186 of you that have jumped online. Wow, that's amazing. If you're just joining us, thank you for joining us, and please share where you're jumping on from in the chat. I absolutely love to go back through the live stream when it ends so I can see where all the members of this growing global online village have amassed from. Really, really phenomenal, and it warms my heart to see people from all around the universe jumping on to support this community. We've got the Netherlands in the chat. We've got people from all over the globe. It just makes me feel so good. Thank you for being here. We've got Germany representing. We've got Sorka. I've been saying Sorka's name wrong for so many years now. We've got Phoenix, Arizona in the house. Thank you all. As you get comfy cozy, please feel free to say hi to your neighbor. Send a nice note in the chat. And I have prepared a couple questions from previous live streams. I don't always get to every question. Those of you that have been doing this with me for a while know that I always like to go back through the chat. I save those questions so I can do exactly what I'm going to do right now. So we're going to kick off the live stream by fielding a question that was asked in a previous live. This question was asked by Jonathan, who says, how do I improve my mobility? I've been on meds now for a few months maybe. So this is an excellent question, and it allows me to tackle some really important points. When we try to live our best life despite having MS, there's really 3 areas of treatment that we want to do simultaneously. One area of treatment is treating an MS attack when they occur. So if you develop a new neurological dysfunction, or you are revisited by an old one that's been gone for a long time, and it's sticking around for longer than a day, and you don't have an infection or a fever, we're concerned that you may be having an MS attack, and we use lotions and potions, things like high-dose corticosteroids, whether that be high-dose IV or oral, to try to hasten your recovery. And that is not what this question is about. Another area of important focus, maybe one of the most important areas of focus when treating MS, is trying to slow the darn disease down. Now, those of you that have been following the channel know that I subscribe to being 5 for 5 in your fight against MS, because there are 5 things that I'm aware of that slow down MS. One of those 5 is taking the most effective disease-modifying therapy that you're comfortable taking and make sure that it's working. There's a third very important area that we have to consider when we're trying to treat MS, and that's treating symptoms that suck. If we only slow the disease down using our disease-modifying therapies and you're miserable because of side effects, we're not doing our best job. And that leads me to be able to answer this question by Jonathan. improving mobility and medicines to slow down MS are done in parallel, but they're not the same thing. So the disease-modifying therapies to slow down MS do not necessarily give you back things you've lost. I always make a joke that I think of the disease-modifying therapies like birth control pills. And if you have 2 kids and you start birth control, you still have 2 kids. They don't go away. You're on birth control in this silly example because you're trying to prevent an unplanned event, and in this case, an unplanned pregnancy. And when you take a disease-modifying therapy, you're trying to stave off future disease activity, future brain damage and spinal cord damage on the MRI. You're trying to stave off future attacks from MS, and you're trying to slow progression of disability. But if you have already accrued some mobility deficits, taking that disease-modifying therapy is not necessarily going to give you that back. So that's where we really turn our attention to symptomatic management. And there are a host of things that we can do to improve mobility in MS. So let me turn to the chat. Somebody throw out a number between 2 through 10. Hit me with a number 2 through 10 really quickly while I have a sip of coffee. I'm waiting for that number to show up. Somebody in the chat throw up a number. There we go. Billy said 9. Okay. So Billy was the first to respond. We're going to do 9 things that improve mobility. Now, I need the moderators and everybody to help me because I won't be able to remember 1 through 9. So tick them off as I go along. So starting off with number 1. One thing that we can do to address mobility is we can work towards a lifestyle of exercise. All right, so number 1 is a lifestyle of exercise. Now, when I say a lifestyle of exercise, when you do something as part of your lifestyle, you're not rewarded when you do it, and you're not punished when you don't do it. So if you are on a baseball team, you have to work out. Like if you don't work out, you're going to get in trouble. That's not part of your lifestyle. I'm talking about as doing something as part of your lifestyle. For example, I have a lifestyle of showering. And if I didn't shower in the morning, I just shower when I got home. That's part of your lifestyle. And I need you to embrace exercise as part of your lifestyle. Now, it's not easy to exercise with MS. In fact, it can be very, very hard to exercise with MS. Nonetheless, we absolutely have to try to find a way to move, which leads me to number 2. If it's hard for you to address a lifestyle of exercise, get ye to the neurophysical therapist. All right, so number 2 is to work with a neurophysical therapist. There's lots of different amazing physical therapists out there, and I'm going to divide them sort of like in two kinds, right? There's general physical therapists that oftentimes are experts at helping with orthopedic recovery. You bust your knee, God forbid, and they teach you how to get back on your feet, or you have a surgery and they're going to help you rehab from that surgery, and that's very, very important. But there's another kind of physical therapist called a neurophysical therapist, and they go to school extra long, and they become wizards at helping people impacted by various neurological conditions, including multiple sclerosis. The value of working with a neuro-PT is they can help you identify which issues of mobility you're having, and they can help you craft a program specifically to help with your unique problems in mobility. They can help you develop what's called a home wellness program, which is going to parlay right into that number 1 of exercising as part of your lifestyle. Number 3. Number 3 is stretching. All right, stretching is massively underappreciated. Many, many people with multiple sclerosis who have mobility problems suffer from spasticity. Spasms, cramps, Charlie horses, and importantly, stiff legs that are hard to bend. And spasticity is different than weakness, and it's not improved by necessarily by bulking up, and you need to stretch. And so I want you to stretch 3 times a day, for real, for real. When you wake up in the morning, before you exit your bedroom, I want you to get your stretch on. Oftentimes, the most helpful muscles to stretch are the ones behind us. So for example, the hamstrings muscles on the back of your legs, the calf muscles, your buttocks, got to stretch the booty. We need to stretch the hips and the lower back. Very, very important. Sorka says, what is a Charlie horse? A Charlie horse is when you have a cramp, like your calf locks up and it hurts like the dickens and it can drop a man to the floor. That's a Americanism, maybe. So number 3 is to stretch, and I talked about stretching in the morning. I also want you to stretch before you go to bed at night. So we're going to stretch at the bookends of the day. And then I need you to stretch once in the middle of your day. So number 3 is stretching as part of your lifestyle. Number 4 is to up your water game. Now, you know how we do it here. When I drink, you drink, and it's time for the MS Water Challenge. Yo, drink up. Woo! I love that. This is carbonated water that I make at home. I'm not doing a commercial, but I would. I love this carbonated water. I put a little bit of lime in there. It's exquisite. Being hydrated is weirdly helpful for MS. And it's weirdly helpful for some things that can impact mobility. If you don't believe me, try it out. I want you to drink a minimum of 64 ounces of water a day, upwards of 100 ounces of water a day. And let's talk about how you do that. I'm going to propose 2 different ways that you can up your game with water. Number 1 is you can be what I call a Nalgene girl or boy. And you see some people and they like traipse around with their water. I do that. You want to crush one of these before the first half of the day, one of these the second half of the day, and you're well on your way. Shannon, coffee does not count. Now, you know I love me some coffee, but coffee doesn't count because that can dehydrate you. Now, another way to up your water game, and this is what I oftentimes recommend, is I want you to drink a glass of water with each meal. So if you have 2 meals a day or 3 meals a day or however many meals you eat, I want you to add a glass of water when you do that. Then I want you to drink a glass of water between each meal. And so that's a way to really get your water game up and going. So that was number 4. Number 5 is to make sure that you are addressing sensory issues which can impact your mobility. Sometimes we have trouble walking, not because our legs are weak or stiff, but because we can't feel our feet. And if you can't feel your feet, it can make it particularly challenging to walk on uneven ground, or when there's obstructions, or when you're, say, walking in the dark. So what's a good example of that? You wake up in the middle of the night, and you got to go pee-pee, and your bed partner has left clothes, or you've left your shoes laying around, and it's dark, and you can't feel your feet, and that's a setup to fall. So we definitely want to address that. Likewise, if you know that it's hard for you to feel the ground, and you have a choice between walking on the sidewalk and walking on the sand or on the grass, I want you to pick the sidewalk. That's very, very important. What number are we on? I think we've done... Have I done 5? I'm looking to see how many I've done here. I told you I wouldn't be able to remember. Blue Thin's really helpful. Let's see. We've done 5. Thank you, Blue Thin. I really appreciate you, buddy. So number 6 of 9, we're going to talk about getting adequate sleep. And you say, what? What does sleep have to do with walking? Well, if you suffer from fatigue, it's going to make every single MS symptom worse. And my patients that are sleep deprived and are really, really tired are going to notice that their mobility kind of tanks. And so we want to make sure that we're addressing that. That's very, very important. And getting adequate sleep is massively underappreciated. People don't do that enough. Number 6 is to use a mobility device. And there is no shame in that game if you need to use a mobility device. Now, using a mobility device could be a cane. It could be 2 canes. It could be walking sticks. It could be a walker. There are a host of mobility devices that can help you. And I've had patients say, well, I refuse to use a cane, or I'm embarrassed to use a cane, or I don't want to take one. And I really want to challenge that, because a cane is used by someone who's smart and doesn't want to fall. If you are at risk of falling, that is a major serious issue, and we want to avoid that at all costs. And, I also think about a societal aspect. If you don't use a cane in public, how will young children growing up learn that it's normal to use a cane if you're smart? So imagine that you're walking in the mall and you've got your cane, and a little boy is going to say, Mommy, why is he using a cane? And that gives her an opportunity to say, well, that person is smart and they don't want to fall, and so they're using a cane to help them walk, and that normalizes it for that child. And so using an assist device, if appropriate, is very, very helpful. Number 8 of 9 is to use a foot flexor orthosis, or an ankle foot orthosis, or a sciatic neural sleeve. These are devices that you put on your leg to overcome foot drop. Foot drop, so pretend this is my foot. Foot drop is very, very common in the setting of MS. And it can catch the ground and you can go to ground. I sometimes joke the turf monster grabs your foot. And so there's a host of devices to pull your foot up, okay? To pull your foot up, there's things that are relatively inexpensive that you can get off Amazon, like a foot flexor. You can have an ankle foot orthosis prescribed by your neurologist, and they can be fitted specifically for you. These are semi-rigid, flexible devices, kind of like an L, if you will, that you put in your shoe, and you put your foot on top of it, and it goes up the back of your leg, and it keeps your foot up. And then there are some really fancy pants ones. There's some devices that are electrical, so it's medicine by Edison. These are things like a psionic neural sleeve that I think is pretty phenomenal. There's other old school ones like walk aids and Bionesses, and these are electrical devices that can help cock the foot up. They can actually fire the muscles of the front of the leg to bring the foot up so that you can walk with proper gait mechanics. So I said I would do 9. We're talking about mobility, and I want to touch on ataxia. So ataxia is a doctor word for walking like you're drunk, or walking like you're on a boat and you don't have your sea legs. And in addition to weakness, and in addition to having difficulties with sensing your feet, some people have difficulties with walking because they're ataxic. And ataxia is not something that you can fix with a pill. Ataxia is, again, something that you can fix with neuro-PT, and you can retrain your gait. So that was a great question that Jonathan Griffith asked a while back. I didn't get a chance to answer it, and so I certainly wanted to tackle it now. Jonathan, thank you for asking the question, and thank you everyone in the chat for helping me remember to count 1 through 9. I appreciate you guys. All right, now let's turn our attention to a question in the live chat. All right, so here's the first question that I see, and this is coming from MJ, who writes, started with Gilenia, then after a few years switched to Mavenclad since 2 years ago, but MRI still shows progression. And I'm assuming what MJ means is new lesions on the MRI. Only had 1 relapse since diagnosis. Thinking about starting Kesimpta. Any ideas? So Kesimpta, Briumvi, Ocrevus, rituximab are all B-cell depleting agents, and they are amongst the most effective disease-modifying agents that currently are available, at least in the United States, by the American FDA. And in groups of people, I think that the B-cell depleters are probably more potent and more effective than all the pills. Now, you've been on some good medicines. I think Gilenia is a good medicine. I think Mavenclad is probably better than Gilenia. I call that king of the pills, Mavenclad. Very, very good medicine. But I'm not sure that it's as effective as the monoclonal antibodies. Kesimpta, the B-cell depletion, is a monoclonal. And I think that is an excellent choice to consider. And so I can't tell you specific for you because I don't know all the specifics about your individual situation. But speaking in generalities, I think that is an extremely reasonable thing to consider. I want you to work with your neurologist to figure out what's right for you. Here's a question from Jane Bishop, who says, what do I do about burning hands? So neuropathic pain sucks. Many of you who have watched my YouTube videos know I oftentimes relate a story that when I was in medical school, I had a professor say that MS doesn't cause pain, which is bullshit. My professor was wrong. MS does cause pain, a lot of different kinds of pain. And one very common type of pain is something that we call dysesthesia. So dysesthesia is a Scrabble word, it's a doctor word, and it means abnormal sensations that hurt. And so when there's damage to certain parts of the brain and when there's damage to certain parts of the spinal cord, you can develop dysesthesias. And this can manifest as a part of your body that burns even though there's no burning. It feels like it's freezing even though it's not cold. It feels like it's being crushed or electrocuted. Very, very unpleasant things. And if you have cervical spine damage, you could have what's called burning hands or burning upper limbs. So what do you do about that? One of the things that you can do about that is take a medicine which treats neuropathic pain. Now, when I say a pain medicine, I'm not talking about narcotics because unfortunately narcotics really don't work for this kind of pain. But there's a host of medicines which were originally developed for other causes. So these are medicines that were oftentimes originally developed either to treat seizures or to treat depression, but they happen to also stabilize cell membranes and treat neuropathic pain. I'll list off a couple of them right now. So these are things like Neurontin, gabapentin, Lyrica, pregabalin. things like Lamictal, lamotrigine, topiramate, Topamax. These are things like trileptal, oxcarbazepine, or carbamazepine, Tegretol. Those are some examples of neuropathic pain medicines which were all invented to treat seizures. If we think about medicines that were originally invented to treat depression, which also treat pain, Cymbalta jumps to mind, duloxetine, and some of the old school medicines like Pamela or Elavil. These are tricyclic antidepressants. All of these can be extremely helpful in trying to help burning hands and neuropathic pain. Now, much to my chagrin, we have to guess at which one you're going to respond to. There's no way to know ahead of time. I wish, like Bones McCoy, I had a tricorder. And actually, to be transparent, I do have a tricorder. I have a wonderful patient of mine who gifted me this really cool tricorder. And let's see if it still works. Oh, the battery. So this is a gift. It's a replica tricorder. I loved on Star Trek where Bones McCoy, the doctor, would scan someone and say, "Damn it, Jim, they have MS." And then it would tell him what to use to treat the person. And we don't have real tricorders when trying to treat neuropathic pain. So what we have to do is we have to make our best medical guess and try it. It can take several weeks to determine whether or not it works. And if it works, groovy. And if it doesn't work, then we apologize and take you off that and then put you on a different medicine. So that's how I address neuropathic pain. That was a great question. So here's a question from Drew Carpenter. So Drew says, what non-stimulants do you suggest to put with Adderall? So first, let's back up a little bit and talk about fatigue. So fatigue is the most common symptom in MS. It's also the leading cause of loss of work in MS. It's also freaking invisible, and people don't understand it because, honey, you look so good. And at least in American culture, when you say, "Ooh, I'm tired," there's almost a call response to this. Yeah, me too. And people don't really understand the severity of fatigue that people can experience. It can be very, very serious. And so at the Boster Center for MS, we spend a tremendous amount of time combating fatigue. And there's a host of ways to combat fatigue. This question sounds like it's really geared towards medicines and supplements and whatnot. And as Drew points out, Adderall, which is an amphetamine salt stimulant, can be very, very effective to treat MS fatigue. Not everyone has access to Adderall. Not everybody wants to take Adderall. Not everybody responds to Adderall. Not everybody can tolerate Adderall. And so sometimes we have to think about something else. There's another class of medicine that I'm very fond of. These are atypical stimulants. Provigil, the generic name is modafinil, is a really, really good one that I like a whole bunch. There's a newer version of it, appropriately called Nuvigil, which is R-modafinil. It's a racemar where they tweaked the modafinil a little bit. And these are non-amphetamine salt stimulants that can be very, very helpful. There are also, if you happen to have obstructive sleep apnea, there are medicines which are FDA approved for fatigue associated with obstructive sleep apnea. There's also some stimulants which can be helpful. Not for everyone, but for some people. So, for example, taking levocarnitine, L-carnitor, a gram twice a day, which is an over-the-counter supplement, for some people can be very, very helpful. There's an old school medicine that, transparently, I haven't found to be terribly helpful in all patients, but every once in a while people respond. That's amantadine. Amantadine is a really weird old drug that has some antiviral properties. It was used originally in some Parkinson's situations, and it may help with fatigue. So there's a host of non-stimulant amphetamine salt medicines which we could use. And that was a great question, Drew. Thank you for asking it. All right, let's take a look here. I'm going to, let's see, tackle another question that I've prepped. And this was a question from G3NO, or I wonder if that's like a clever way of saying Gino. So this was a question that somebody asked a few weeks back, and I didn't get a chance to answer it, so I thought I would answer it now. I have what I believe was a relapse in the form of numbness and tingling of my limbs. The MRI showed no new lesions, but I'm choosing to take steroids for 3 days. Is that a good call, or is it unnecessary? And so I like this question from Gino because it's a very real-world question, and I get this asked quite a bit from patients and practitioners. When you are suffering from MS, you're a you expert, I mean, come on now. You know more about you than an MRI. You know more about you than me running you through the MS Olympics, right? And if your legs are numb and tingly, they're numb and tingly. You didn't make that up. That's not a hallucination. And if your legs have developed numb and tinglies, and that's been going on for several days in the absence of an infection, it's very concerning that you may be having an attack. And just because you get an MRI that doesn't show a new spot doesn't mean it's not real, because it's still real. And that can occur for many reasons. Number one, if the practitioner only imaged the brain, well, you could have lesions in your cervical spine or in your thoracic spine or in your lumbar spine to cause leg numbness, and maybe they just didn't image that part of your body. Or they did image all the different parts, and the MRI just didn't catch that lesion because it might be missed. Or it could be reactivation of an old lesion. And even if it's not seen on the MRI, it doesn't mean it's not real. I personally don't find it valuable to obtain an MRI to look for a lesion when someone is experiencing a clinical attack. I don't need an MRI. I have them. I have the you expert to tell me, hey, I've got a new problem. And if I can find evidence on my neurological examination with my fancy tuning fork or what have you, that's confirmation enough that I think the better part of valor is to treat. So I don't get an MRI when I'm concerned about an attack. I don't need an MRI. I get an MRI when you're not having an attack. I like to get an MRI of the brain about once a year. I like to get an MRI of the spine, particularly the cervical spine, maybe every 2 years or so. And I do that because I want to, quote, look under the hood, end quote. You're not a car. I'm just using an example. I want to look under the hood, quote unquote, when things are going well to make sure that I'm not missing subclinical disease activity. So I really like that question from Gino. Thank you for asking it. I'm going to change the scene up. And this is the soothing river scene. Ho ho. And wait, let me get this set up here. We're going to take a couple other questions from the live stream. So Shaylee asks a very common question. And I don't think we can have a discussion about MS unless we happen to talk about cannabis, ganja, weed, marijuana. So cannabis is a naturally occurring substance. I've got a bunch of YouTube channels talking about cannabis and the use of cannabis to treat MS symptoms. So if you're curious, you can check that out. And here's a question where Shaylee says, I know you said you shouldn't smoke stuff, which is something I say all the time. But what about cannabis in the form of edibles? So I don't think you should smoke stuff because it speeds up MS. If you take a carbon-based material, whether that be dried cannabis or dried tobacco, and you light it on fire and create smoke, and you suck in the smoke, that's pro-inflammatory, and that can actually speed up your MS. And so I don't want you to do that. But there are situations where cannabis can be helpful to treat certain MS symptoms. Symptoms like anxiety, symptoms like insomnia, symptoms like neuropathic pain, symptoms like spasticity. And in those instances, cannabis can be very helpful, but I don't want you to smoke it. So an edible is an awesome idea. Edibles can be very, very helpful. Now, when you take an edible, it works differently. Mechanistically, it's the same, but the kinetics of it are different than when you smoke a doobie or have a vape pen or something of this nature. When you smoke cannabis or when you vape cannabis, there's a very fast onset. It peaks in your blood really, really quickly, and then it comes back down relatively fast. And there's a very fast onset of action. When you swallow a THC-laden gummy, it goes in your stomach, and the stomach acid dissolves it, and then it goes into your bloodstream, and then it courses through the liver, and then it finally makes your way to your brain. And that can take 45 minutes to kick in. And so it's a slower onset by a lot, and then it can actually sometimes last longer. And so it may peak in a couple hours. You may notice the impact of edible cannabis for a much longer period of time. And knowing that is really, really important so that you don't dose it wrong. I always kind of tongue-in-cheek joke about 20-year-old boys who will take a gummy, and then 5 minutes later, they don't feel anything, so then they take another gummy. And then 10 minutes later, they don't feel anything, they take another gummy. And then a couple hours later, they're incapacitated or they go to the ER because they've overdosed. Now, by the way, if you ever take too much cannabis, go to sleep because you'll be able to wake up and it'll be gone. That stated, when you use a cannabis gummy, we have to keep in mind that it doesn't kick in for 45 minutes to an hour. And so I want you to plan accordingly. But I do think that for certain MS symptoms, edible cannabis is actually an option that is to be explored. That was a great question. Thank you for asking it. Let's take another one from the chat. Let's see here. So here's a question from CDog70. CDog70 says, can unpaired O-bands show before lesions? And if so, should treatment be started if unpaired O-bands are found? So that's a great question, which really gets into the concept of diagnosing multiple sclerosis. Let's unpack this question a bit. Multiple sclerosis is an autoimmune condition which impacts the brain and spinal cord, where your immune system attacks the central nervous system. And it's an inflammatory process. And so when we're trying to diagnose multiple sclerosis, we're using 5 elements, if I use patient-friendly language. The first element is your story. So we're listening for a story of either discrete attacks, which sound like MS attacks, where you have a focal onset of loss of a neurological function, or a slow progression of disability. This tricorder is acting up. And I don't know how to turn the tricorder off. Sorry, guys. There, maybe the tricorder will be quiet now. I don't know why I did that. That was a little bit weird. The other story that we're listening to is a slow, insidious progression of disability, which we can see in the setting of progressive MS, primary progressive MS. The second thing we're looking for are the 5 things. Get my hand in frame here. The second thing we're looking for is exam findings that support your story. So, for example, if you describe trouble with your eye, when we examine your eye, we're looking to see if we can find those problems to help buttress the story. The third thing is the MRI, and the MRIs have revolutionized MS. We've been using MRI as part of the diagnostic criteria for MS going way back to McDonald criteria, 2001. And there was an update to the criteria literally this year. So we call that the 2023-24 criteria update revision. And there's new and improved ways of using the MRI. Now, if you guys would like to hear a lot about that, I can make a YouTube video updating that information. So let me know in the chat if that's something that you're interested in. And when we do an MRI as part of diagnosis, we're looking for inflammatory lesions, which you can see through a host of different ways, including when we give that contrast dye, the injection, the gadolinium, or through some of these newer techniques, we can see that there's inflammation on the MRI. Another way is to get spinal fluid. And spinal fluid can be very, very useful in trying to diagnose MS. Now, this really gets into CDog70's question about spinal fluid. When we check spinal fluid, we're drawing spinal fluid, and then we're also drawing blood on the same day. It's important that it's the same day, because essentially we're looking at the robustness or the activity of the immune system. So we're looking at the number of antibodies, basically, that we see in the bloodstream compared to the spinal fluid. So CDog70 makes reference to unpaired O-bands. So oligoclonal bands, or OCBs, or bands, are really a way of looking for antibodies. And generally speaking, you have a lot more antibodies or bands in your blood than you do in your spinal fluid. But in the setting of MS, upwards of 90% of people have an excessive number of antibodies in their spinal fluid, and they will have unpaired oligoclonal bands, meaning they have bands in the spinal fluid which are not seen in the bloodstream. And if you have a bunch more bands in the spinal fluid as compared to the bloodstream, that suggests that the immune system is overly active in the central compartment, and that's seen in 90% of people that have MS. So the question, and by the way, just to finish up, the fifth thing is, hey, make sure that it's not something else. And so there are things that can mimic MS. And so we have to rule those out, which we oftentimes do by looking at the MRI and by getting certain laboratories. All right. So CDog70's question was, can unpaired O-bands show up before lesions? And if so, should you start treatment? And the answer is yes, they can show up, and no, you should not start treatment, because other things can also cause unpaired oligoclonal bands. Anything which causes inflammation in the central compartment, A central nervous system infection can, for example. Cancers can. A host of other things can. And so if you have unpaired oleclonal bands in the spinal fluid and no lesions on your MRI, then I don't think it's safe to say this is MS and to start treatment. That was a great question. Thank you for asking it. It's time for the MS Water Challenge. You know what we do. When I drink, you drink. Drink up, guys. Whew, that's really good. I love this soda stream. It's really phenomenal. All right, let's keep on keeping on. I'm going to take a question from something I prepared beforehand. This is a really good question. And so this is from a viewer, Marissa, who asked this question a few months back, and I didn't get to it, so I'm glad that I can answer it now. This question from Marissa reads, Provigil didn't touch my fatigue. Now I'm on Adderall. It hasn't helped much. I haven't woken up feeling rested in 6 years. So as I mentioned earlier in this live stream, fatigue is the most common symptom in MS. But MS fatigue doesn't impact you when you wake up. Ha! When you have MS and you wake up, you're going to wake up with all the energy you're going to have for the day. You're going to be the most energized right when you wake up. And unfortunately, in the setting of MS, you can use up that energy very, very quickly. If you wake up and you don't feel rested, that's typically not MS. That's typically a sleep disorder, like obstructive sleep apnea. So this question is important because it brings up something very important. When you feel tired, you just feel tired. You don't know why you're tired. And when I read this question, I think, we might have more than one thing going on. We may have two things going on. We may have some MS fatigue, yes, but we also may have some untreated sleep disorder. So I want Marissa and people that have an experience similar to Marissa to get ye to the sleep specialist to see if you're a snorer, to see if you have obstructive sleep apnea, to see if you stop breathing while you sleep and you're not getting restorative sleep. If you wake up 18 times a night to go pee-pee, you're interrupting your sleep. If you wake with spasms and cramps, you're interrupting your sleep. If you have restless leg, which makes it impossible to fall asleep, you're interrupting your sleep. And maybe you're waking up because you have disordered sleep. And no amount of Provigil or Adderall can necessarily overcome that. And so my concern here, as I read this question, is that maybe Marissa has a sleep disorder which is untreated. And the tip-off is that she's waking not feeling rested. So if this resonates with you, keep that in mind. You can have more than one thing going on. My mentor, Dr. Omar Azar Khan, used to say, sometimes nature is a little too generous. So I thought that was a really helpful question. I'm really glad that Marissa asked it. Let's take another question from the chat. Woo, this is one that gets me fired up. Wombly Buckley is a cool name. Wombly Buckley says, I am 70 and my doctor says that I should stop my MS medicine as my immune system will be slowing down. What's your view on this? Well, I have a lot of YouTube videos on this and I'm very, very passionate about this. I think that there is a issue amongst MS neurologists that are stopping medicines too early. And I am very, very bothered when people stop medicines in someone who's like in their 50s or early 60s. I was trained that when you reach into your 70s and early 80s, that your immune system can slow down. That's true. And so the MS can become a little bit quieter. You're certainly at less risk of having attacks. But I don't think that we should just stop just because you happen to have celebrated your 70th birthday. I have seen people impacted by MS who are in their 70s have progression of disability. I've seen them have attacks, and I wouldn't want to rip you off your medicine. Here's what I think we should do. There needs to be a risk-benefit assessment, and this is independent of age. As we age, you're at increased risk of infections. It's true. And we want to make sure that the medicine that we're using is safe. I'm not a fan of stopping a medicine per se. I am a fan of de-escalating. And so what I oftentimes do with someone in their 70s is we're going to talk through this together. We're going to think about the risk-benefit. There are situations where the risk outweighs the benefit, but not just because of age. And if we decide that we want to keep on keeping on, it might be fair to de-escalate the intensity of the medicine to something that has a more favorable side effect profile. So that's my opinion. All right. So I am going to tackle another question that was asked in a previous live stream. And this is by Jim P., who says, please explain Botox for spasticity. So as mentioned earlier in the live stream, spasticity is very, very common in MS. I would say that upwards of 70% of people impacted by MS experience spasticity at some point in time. And spasticity is really something that occurs when opposing muscle groups fight. So I'll use, let's see if I can get my arm in view. I'll use my massive arm here. So if I want to bring my arm down, the tricep muscle has to get shorter. It has to contract. If I want to bring my arm up, my bicep muscle has to contract. But here's the thing. To bring my arm up, not only does the bicep have to contract, but the tricep has to let go because these are opposing muscles. And I don't tell my opposing muscle to relax. I just say, water. And the spinal cord and brain turn off the opposing muscle. In the setting of MS, however, sometimes the opposing muscle didn't get the memo. It didn't get the email, and it doesn't know that it's supposed to stop contracting. And so in the setting of MS, you may be trying to do that, and you're also trying to do that, not on purpose. And so you're having a tug of war with your own freaking limb. And that can happen in your feet and your hands and your arms and your legs. It can be really, really yucky. And it typically manifests in three ways. You can see limbs that are hard to bend. So like getting out of the car can be really, really challenging. You can see a spasm or Sorka, a Charlie horse. So that's an Americanism that we taught you today. Or you can have bouncing spasms, things like that, cramps, whatnot. And there's lots of different medicines to treat spasticity. And picking a medicine for spasticity has everything to do with identifying where you're spastic. So Botox is a injection. It's actually a toxin from botulinum. It's one of the most toxic substances on Earth. And if you take a little itty bitty tiny bit of it and you inject a very small amount into the muscle, you can poison the muscle a small amount. And it will poison that muscle and dampen the power of the muscle, let's say 3% or 5%. And it will help with focal spasticity. Focal spasticity is when you just have spasticity, say, of these fingers or of this wrist. And Botox is awesome sauce for treating focal areas of spasticity. Botox is not awesome when you have all of both of your legs spastic because you can't Botox that many muscles. And in those situations where you have many, many limbs involved, we don't want to use a focal treatment because you don't have a focal problem. We want to use a more generalized treatment like an oral baclofen or a baclofen pump or something like this. All right. That was a great question. I really appreciate Jim asking. I'm going to change the scene, and we're going to go to the purple scene. And this is a plug for my friend. So some of you that joined the pre-party heard me talk about this. And let's see if I can put this in the chat as well. So what you see on the screen right now is a YouTube channel that just got kicked off. And this YouTube channel has been started by a friend of mine, an amazing PhD psychologist, Dr. M. Dr. M is phenomenal, and I have been referring her people impacted by MS for over a decade. And she is really, really good. Honest, she's probably one of the best therapists that I've ever interacted with in my life. She has helped so many families impacted by MS that she sort of identifies MS as its own subspecialty in her practice. Now, I'm really proud of her because she has taken the plunge and she started a YouTube channel. And I want to support her and I want to celebrate her. So I would like you to click the link in the chat and I want you to subscribe to her channel because she's freaking brilliant. And the content that she puts out is going to be really, really good. So she's just getting things kicked off. Do me a favor and click that link or go to the Behave Forward with Dr. M and follow her channel and tell your friends about it also because she's only just started to put out YouTube videos and I'm really, really proud of her and I'm really impressed that she's doing it and I want to support her. So please absolutely do that. Okay, let's take a question from the chat. Tron. That is a cool name. Tron. And so Tron asks a question: how early does thalamic atrophy set in MS? Before visible lesions? It can. So when you look at brain volume loss occurs as early as you care to measure. So even in clinically isolated syndrome, when you use sensitive measures, you can see brain volume loss, including thalamic loss. I've got a bit of a parched thing going on, and you know what that means. It's time for the MS Water Challenge, yo. All right. I love that water. When I drink, you drink, guys. You know how we do it. So Drew Carpenter asks, does nicotine patch help with cog fog? So nicotine is a very addictive substance. It's super hard to get off of nicotine. In fact, you'll learn that nicotine is actually more addictive and harder to quit than heroin, which is scary. Nicotine is a stimulant. And so some people will notice when they consume nicotine that it helps them stay awake. But I'm not sure that I would recommend a nicotine patch to help with cog fog, just because it can be very, very addictive. All right, let's take another question. Bluthen has a question here. Are pseudo-exacerbations caused by fever common? And what's the long-term effects? I didn't know about pseudo-symptoms until I read an article by Dr. Google. So when you have damage from MS in the brain or the spinal cord or the optic nerves, and when you have an infection, urinary tract infection, sinus infection, some type of infection, one of the ways that your body fights that is by raising your core body temperature even just half a degree. And that will cause those old areas of damage to short circuit. And that can manifest a coming back out of old symptoms. And you don't necessarily get an email telling you that you have an infection. All you know is that your leg is weak again. And so the human being can't necessarily sort that out without doing some laboratory testing. When you identify someone that has return of old symptoms that have been going on for over a day, and you identify they have a fever, you identify that they have an infection, they have, for example, a urinary tract infection, we call that a pseudo attack. Pseudo means similar to, but it ain't. Okay? And a pseudo attack is a very, very real event. It ain't make-believe. It's very real and very, very bothersome. But it's not new MS inflammation. It's short-circuiting old damage. And the way that we treat that is we treat the underlying infection, we treat the fever, whatever the case may be, and then those symptoms go away. So pseudo-attacks have no long-term damage. None. When you treat the underlying cause and the temperature goes back down, there's no new damage because of a pseudo-attack. That was a really good question. Thank you for asking it. Scooby-Doo, thank you very much for following along and thank you for subscribing to our channel. Joe Sider is one of our amazing moderators and a hell of a good guy. Just reminded us that if you haven't already, you can subscribe to the Boster Corner. So that's the link to the Boster Corner. It's a free monthly newsletter that we put out at the Boster Center for MS, which kind of shares the latest and greatest of what's going on with the Boster Center, including updates on the latest opportunities for research and when I go live. So if you want to try to figure out when you go live, that's a great way to find that out. All right, let's change it up, yo. I did it again. Darn it. I'm so sorry, guys. I will keep forgetting that there's no audio on that one. Okay, can you hear me again? Okay. All right. So hopefully now you can hear me again. Let me see if I can be super sneaky pants and fix that really quickly, okay? I'm going to try to do this on the fly, not something I'm good at. Give me a second. Okay, testing, testing, 1, 2, 3, 4. Mary had a little lamb, over. Okay, can you guys hear me now? If this worked, oh, yay, okay, good. Audiovisual is not my strong suit, and a lot of times I'm hacking and slashing my way through trying to do these live streams. Okay, yay. I'm very proud of myself. I had to copy and paste the audio files, and I did it. Yay, Aaron. Okay, all right, so now I can answer this question. So as I started to say, although none of you could hear me, this is a question from a wonderful viewer who's been a longtime viewer and participant on the channel in Israel. And she writes, having trouble urinating, especially in the middle of the night, like when I want to get finished up and go back to bed. Any tricks and tips? And so what we're hearing about is 2 urinary problems that are very, very common in the setting of MS. One problem is called nocturia. So that's a doctor word for I get up to pee way too often, right? And the second problem is urinary retention, where it's hard to get all the urine out. And these are both very, very common in the setting of MS. And so you can imagine you're getting up to pee, which you really don't want to have to do, and then it takes freaking forever to empty your bladder, and so that can be a problem. And Sorka actually presents one of the options that we might consider, right? But we'll get to that one in a second or two. The first thing that I want to remind you is that when you drink something, okay, so when you drink something, you make urine for about 6 hours. And a lot of us, someone's saying I muted myself. All right, but you can still hear me. A lot of us, we may be drinking fluids in the evening times all the way up before we go to bed. And if you're drinking water all the way up until you go to bed, you're very likely going to be making urine all night long. And so let's pretend that you drink until 11 p.m., then you get in bed. You're going to make urine 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 a.m. You're making urine all night long. And there's a high likelihood that you're going to have to get up to pee several times. So if you can drink 2/3 of all the fluid you're going to drink in the first half of your day, really, really hit that water hard in the morning, really hit that water hard before lunch, really hit the water hard during lunch, and then slow down and stop drinking water around the dinner hour, okay? So stop drinking water, let's say around 6. You're going to not be making urine as readily while you're sleeping. And so by timing when you drink, it can help a whole bunch. Now, some of you said, so Amy said, yikes, Sorka. And Amy, it's not a yikes. So many people impacted by MS can't empty their bladder all the way. And learning how to intermittent straight cath is the bomb.com. It's very, very, very helpful. Very few people say, ooh, could I please put a tube in my hoo-ha, right? I get that. But once you learn how to intermittent self-cath, it turns out that it's not a very big deal. It's very fast. It's very easy to do. It's very safe. It can be done in a sterile fashion. And you can guarantee that your bladder's empty. And so if you imagine Phage, she wakes up in the middle of the night, she's got to pee, you could put in a catheter, drain your bladder, pull the catheter out, you know that you're good in the hood. And so that's another way that you can absolutely address that. A third way, before we switch topics, is there's a medicine. And so there's a medicine called tamsulosin. The trade name in the United States is Flomax, all right? Flomax, like maximum flow, get the pee-pee out. And Flomax was originally invented for men's enlarged prostates. But it doesn't work on the prostate. It works on the smooth muscle of the urethra, which is the tube going from the bladder out of the body to the toilet. And it expands that tube to a larger size, so it's easier to get the urine out. So before I ask someone to intermittent self-cath, we first try to see if they can respond to a medicine like Flomax or tamsulosin. And if they don't adequately, then we go to get into the self-catheterization. So that was a great question. Now, when you look in the chat, several people are sharing that they benefit from intermittent self-cath. And it's really, really a very powerful tool that's worth learning. Jenny B, that's funny. All right. Let's shift things up and answer a question from the chat. Let's take a look here. So, Blackbird Paint It Black. That's a fun name. Does chiropractic intervention help with MS aches and pains? Another person recommended, not my neuro. Has anyone heard of this? So, I am an MD. I'm an allopath, which means I was not taught about chiropractic manipulation. And I would submit to you that chiropractic manipulation does not have evidence for benefit in treating an autoimmune disease. There's probably some evidence that chiropractic manipulation can help with back pain. And if you have back pain, a lot of people can benefit from seeing the chiropractor. And so it's possible that they may be able to help you with that. I have a concern when chiropractors manipulate your neck because there's actually some very scary things that can happen to the blood vessels in your neck. I've seen, unfortunately, patients that have had strokes because they've had their necks cracked and it created a really, really big problem. So I strongly advise against a chiropractor manipulating your neck. And I'm very concerned and bothered when a chiropractor says that they can treat a medical ailment, something like an MS, through chiropractic manipulation because there's no data for that. So that's my answer. Please keep in mind that I'm not trained in chiropractic manipulation. And so you have to take that in consideration when you listen to what I have to say. Now, we were talking about PP. We're talking about the down theres. And so it's reasonable to also talk about orgasm. So if you are antsy pants about discussions of sex, leave the live stream. Because the down theres is a really important aspect of life. And unfortunately, people impacted by MS can have lots of problems with the down theres, bowel, bladder, and bedroom. And there's lots of different kinds of bedroom problems, including a terrible, terrible word called anorgasmia, which means, oh my God, I can't orgasm. And so this is not something to be shy about. This is not something to hide. This is something to bring up to your doctor. And if your neurologist is a scaredy pants or says, oh my goodness gracious, I don't know what, and doesn't know what to do, that's okay. Say, it's no problem, doc. I want you to refer me either to a urologist or to a pelvic floor physical therapist because these are medical specialists that can oftentimes help with issues with anorgasmia. But just to talk about it for a little bit, I'll share my top 2 techniques. My first top technique is to purchase 2 things: a water-based lubricant, which increases skin sensitivity, and a plug-in-the-wall vibrator. And the plug-in-the-wall vibrator provides what I like to call overdrive stimulation, because a lot of times the problem with achieving orgasm is when you stimulate the down theres, the message doesn't get all the way to the brain because of damage in the brain and spinal cord. And so the brain never learns like what the dealio is. And so if you provide overdrive stimulation, then oftentimes you can get the message up to the brain. So water-based lubricant, plug-in-the-wall vibrator, and giddy up. And you can use that plug-in-the-wall vibrator by yourself, before intercourse, during intercourse with your partner. Think of it as like an assistance device, the same way that glasses are an assistance device. Another thing that I want you to think about, let's do 2 more. There are medicines used to treat symptoms of MS that can make it really, really hard to achieve orgasm. And the biggest culprit that I see are SSRI antidepressants like Zoloft, Paxil, Prozac, like these medicines, which are really, really useful to treat depression, but they can interfere with intercourse and specifically with orgasm. And so if you're on one of those medicines, there are options to switch medicines. So for example, there's a medicine called Prestique, which has less sexual side effects, or there's a medicine, Wellbutrin, that has less sexual side effects. And so sometimes we'll switch to one of those so that we can still control the depression, but more likely that someone can achieve orgasm, which is very, very helpful. The third thing is to have a discussion with your sexual partner when you're wearing clothes, not having sexy, sexy time. And this is so important because oftentimes partners, particularly partners that have been together for a long time, you'll find that they have intercourse exactly in the same fashion every time and they don't talk too much about it. And so as you think about what I'm saying, you may say, yeah, we kind of go through the same routine and there's not a lot of discussion or interaction. And if you are able to talk to your partner, have a very open conversation about intercourse, you can game out certain things. For example, you might say, hey, I used to like this position, but now it hurts. That position that we used to do, I really can't do that very well. Something that I think would work well is da-da-da. And you can have a really engaging conversation with your partner. And a lot of times that's not adequately done, and that can help a whole bunch. So I hope that helps. I really appreciated Beauty and Disability asking that question, and so I'm glad that I got a chance to tackle it today. I'm going to change the scene one more time. We're getting very close to the top of the hour. Let's take another question. Let's take a look. Beastma says, I'm replaying this live with my partner later. So that's really awesome. Thank you for that. I have a lot of videos on the channel about sex and MS. And so you could cue one of those videos up and that might be helpful. Now, Sorka says, my bowel question, Dr. B. All right, so where's your bowel question? I'm looking for your bowel question. Maybe if you could repost it, I could try to tackle it before we wrap up the live stream. I'm not seeing the bowel question. All right, Sorka, see if we can repost it. If not, we're going to have to tackle it at the next live stream. So, in the meantime, JS writes, should a UA always be done prior to Ocrevus infusion? So we want to make sure that we're not infusing an immunosuppressant like Ocrevus when you have an active infection. And if you're not clear, getting a UA is not a bad idea. Here's Sorka's question. When to see someone about bowel that hasn't opened in 4.5 days? So I think what you mean is that you haven't pooped in 4.5 days, and that is way too long. Right. So as a general rule, if you haven't pooped in 3 days, I want to take some interventions to help you poop. And I have several videos on the channel where I go through like 60 reasons why you can't poop. And there's a host of things that you can be doing. There's supplements. There's a host of things that you can take by mouth. There's also some stuff that you can put up the tushy. There's a lot of different things you can do, but if you haven't pooped in 4.5 days, that can lead to a lot of different problems, increase in symptoms and spasticity and a whole host of things. So I would definitely take that seriously enough that I would start to do some interventions. We might find that taking a stool softener, we may find that taking magnesium, we may find that probiotics and things like this can be very, very helpful. We may need to do digital rectal stimulation. We may need to do a suppository or enemata. We may need to take magnesium citrate. We may need to take things like Miralax. There's a host of things that can be done to get you moving. And if you've tried those things and you're not moving your bowels, that might even be a reason to go to the emergency department to make sure that you don't have a blockage, keeping in mind that people impacted by MS can have neurogenic bowel. Now, if you have neurogenic bladder or you have significant leg weakness, you may also have neurogenic bowel. And so we don't want to ignore that. We just crested the noon hour. We've been talking live now for an hour, and this wraps up the April Ask Me Anything live stream. My name's Aaron Boster, and as always, thank you for learning about MS with me. I am absolutely delighted that there's 262 of you that have jumped online. Thank you. Thank you for supporting this channel and for watching my videos. Thank you for sharing them with your friends and family. That really helps out the YouTube algorithm. If you haven't liked this video, please do, or this live stream, please do, because that also teaches the algorithm that you like the content and helps push it out so more families impacted by MS can benefit. I will continue to do these live streams and continue making Monday morning videos as long as you guys keep benefiting from them. So as always, this is Aaron Boster signing off and saying be safe and take care. Until next month, guys.